Hi, everyone. Great to have everyone joining us, and welcome. Since you can't see us, let me introduce us. I'm Paulina, and I'm here with my partner, Anne. Hello. We are founders of Roundpeg, a marketing firm that is both a B Corp and a benefit corporation, and we grow customer relationships on purpose. We do this by developing creative marketing strategies and campaigns to engage customers, increase retention, and build loyal communities of influence. Please take a note of the hashtag in the corner, Activate Purpose. Please use it on social throughout the session and keep the conversation going for days after. Here's a quick overview of what we'll be talking about today. The agenda lists questions we'll cover during this webinar. Now, I'm sure you'll have lots of questions as we go through our presentation today, but please hold your questions till the end and use the Q&A function of the webinar to chat as your questions.
And you can go ahead and chat those throughout. We just won't be responding to them until we're finished. And we do have Jason helping us in the background. So if you have any audio or visual challenges or anything isn't clear to you, go ahead and chat that, and he'll be able to respond and let us know if there are any problems. So let's start with the challenge here. Our guess is that many of you are here today because you know how tough it is to earn and keep loyal customers. We're operating in a marketplace where trust in brands is at an all-time low. Just take a look at the stats on this slide. At the same time, demands from consumers are at nearly an all-time high. So brands are needing to work a lot harder to gain trust, approval, and loyalty from their customers and clients. Changing social consciousness and the emergence of socially responsible business demands increased accountability and positive impact from all companies, especially as 88% of consumers believe that companies have the power to influence societal change, and 78% feel that companies should address the issues facing us. Brands that are answering the demand for meaning and showing responsibility are really reaping the rewards. And a growing number of companies are meeting the expectations of consumers. While some are simply greenwashing and goodwashing, companies like certified B corporations use business as a force for good. And I know we have some B Corp friends here with us, so welcome. And if you're not familiar with B Corp, check out bcorporation.net to learn a little bit more. So while it's still absolutely important, social responsibility has become more of a prerequisite than a differentiator for brands. Between genuinely socially responsible companies like B Corps and some others, and the not so genuine companies that are goodwashing, 9 out of 10 global consumers are now expecting companies to do more than just make a profit. So while consumers may favor your brand for doing good, they certainly won't view it as exceptional or different. So these higher expectations from consumers and clients are promising because they signal that buying responsibly is important to them. And this theoretically should prompt companies to adopt more responsible practices across their operations. But many businesses get away with half-baked efforts because it's difficult for most of us on the buying side to distinguish true responsibility from clever marketing campaigns or a CSR program with limited scope and minimal impact. So take Apple, for instance. They say that 93% of their energy comes from renewable sources. And in China, for example, they use 170 megawatts of solar to offset the energy used to make their products, which all sounds great, right? But what else are they doing in China? So just looking at this one piece as an example. As a consumer electronics brand, they rely on rare earth elements. And the process of refining these elements can have ghastly environmental impacts. A large part of their production happens in Battelle, which is a city of 2.5 million people who rely on mining and refining elements for their livelihood. But the byproducts such as radioactive sludge, have leached into the groundwater there, causing increased rates of cancer, respiratory diseases, and other illnesses among the local population. This isn't part of the story that Apple shares with their consumers. So they're claiming social responsibility on one hand, but they're being far from authentic in being responsible. Instead of empowering conscious consumerism, these misleading practices cultivate distrust. When the expectations that marketing creates don't really mesh with the reality of the consumer experience, it erodes trust in a company specifically and in socially responsible business generally. Given the good washing that abounds, it's really no wonder that Americans only trust 22% of brands. So as consumers are starting to demand that companies back up their taglines and follow through on their guarantees, companies are responding because their bottom lines will suffer if they fail to meet those customer expectations. Because disappointment erodes trust and prevents loyalty, which precludes profitable long-term relationships. So more than social responsibility is needed to build transformational relationships that really lead to loyalty and spark action among customers and clients. So a big part of what's missing in the example that we just shared is an overriding good purpose to guide the actions of a company like Apple, for example. And sure, they have a purpose, and that's what we call a lowercase p purpose, which is to make tools for the mind that advance humankind. They make no larger claims of social responsibility, meaning that they're not touting that as a main focus of the company. So this may be why Apple gets off easier when it comes to their CSR claims and when they conflict with their practices. But a purpose that is tied to good, or a social purpose, what we call a purpose with a capital P, is a powerful force for building customer trust, affinity, and loyalty, and for amplifying your social impact. A recent study by Edelman showed that purpose is helping truly good companies stand out, and it's driving customer preference. So while product, price, sustainability, and responsibility are necessary, what makes you stand out is what your brand means to your customers and clients, and how they interpret and experience your brand. And that's where purpose comes in to engage customers in really meaningful relationships. So while social responsibility is largely focused on the actions and the mechanics of a company, like what a company does and how it does it, purpose is rooted in the soul of a company, why it exists, and the difference that it makes. And that's simply more meaningful to customers than disparate actions of corporate social responsibility.
So let's talk about purpose. What is purpose? But before we go into detail about how purpose can unlock customer loyalty, let's get on the same page about what purpose is and what it isn't. All businesses have a purpose, but not all purpose is tied to positive social impact. For our purposes here, pun intended, we're talking about social purpose that is tied to positive social impact. So again, what is purpose? You probably all are familiar with Simon Sinek and have seen his TED Talks. Ann and I are great admirers of him. And he has a statement that explains this beautifully. He says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that gets right to the core of what purpose is. Purpose is why you exist, the difference you make in the world. Purpose is not what you do. It's not products you make or sell or the social initiatives you have in place. Social responsibility, triple bottom line, sustainability, certifications are all about how you deliver purpose. Purpose is baked in, it's not added on. Programs like CSR, donations, philanthropy, all can be part of how you fulfill your purpose, but they aren't sum total of your purpose. Purpose is a perspective towards the future versus focusing on sustaining the present. And finally, purpose stands for something. It's not against something. Cause marketing, for the most part, is against something. For example, many brands are against environmental pollution, but 7th Generation has a purpose to help people live a more natural and chemical-free life. So why is it important to be grounded in purpose? How does it fit in? Well, if purpose is at the heart of everything you do, then it helps you be more effective and focused. It helps you connect your values to those of your customers, and it helps differentiate your business. And finally, it allows you to be truly disruptive in your sector. And I know we keep harping on this point, but it really is something we strongly believe. And while the rings of the diagram are not to scale, the main takeaway is that purpose is embedded at the very core, and everything else builds upon it and draws from it.
And it's exactly because purpose is all about the why that it can be especially valuable when it comes to customer engagement and retention. And that's something most companies don't give enough attention to. A lot of businesses put the majority of their time, budget, and energy into attracting customers or clients, which is important. And the pressure of profit really are pushing those companies to focus on short-term and quarterly gains instead of those long-term growth strategies. In doing that, though, oftentimes they neglect retention and lose customers because what they promised, what the brand promised in the positioning or in the sales process never translates to the customer experience. So just think about the notoriously bemoaned difference between what Comcast provides and what their customers actually experience when they have to call that customer service line for the first, 10th, or 20th time. Of course, you can't ignore acquisition. Without new customers, you can't build loyalty. But focusing on acquisition at the expense of customer experience and retention is a wasted opportunity. The bottom line benefits of engagement and retention are hard to ignore. Just a small increase in retention can yield a huge increase in profits. On average, loyal customers are worth up to 10% more after their first purchase. So clearly, retention deserves at least as much energy as acquisition.
So how can purpose help? It's important to build customer relationships that go beyond transactions to form long-lasting connections based on trust, values, emotion, and a desire to do good.
The purpose and customer engagement are really a natural fit because customer engagement is at its core the emotional connection between your customers and your company. When you lead with purpose, you don't have to manufacture justifications to win customer loyalty because you're empowering your customers to make every purchase a declaration of their values. So how can purpose help? Following your purpose to deliver on your brand promise will cultivate trust in your brand. And earning trust is a worthwhile investment. When customers are aligned with a brand, they give at least twice as much share of wallet as those who are not. So when customers are aligned with your brand and your purpose, they're going to give twice as much share of wallet, according to Gallup. And for most companies, purpose and brand promise are little more than decorative flourishes, unfortunately. So you really do need to be authentic to gain trust. And I should note here that social purpose is not for every company, and we'll talk a little bit later about some things that can help you explore that for your company. So next, integrating a core purpose throughout the customer journey can also help to ensure that what your customers are experiencing is consistent with what you've promised. When a customer experiences a brand's purpose, they'll start to think of that company as more than just an entity. Purpose leads to affinity surging. Up to 88% of customers will be loyal to a company that aligns with what they care about. So that not only means that they'll be excluding other brands, but they'll also start telling the story of their experience and be open to a different type of relationship. Americans are more likely to purchase from a company that shares their opinions, and that's no big surprise. But these shared values form the basis of the emotional connection that's really necessary to develop more meaningful customer relationships. In fact, neuroimagery studies of consumer brains even show that the richer the emotional connection with a brand, the more likely the consumer will be to be a loyal user. And inviting customers to be partners in your purpose helps them actualize their self-image as a purpose-driven person. So by helping them actualize the self-view, you form an even deeper emotional connection. And next, purpose really amplifies impact of a company. That sense of shared purpose sets up the opportunity to collaboratively further your purpose with your customers or clients. A Cone survey showed that while companies are still relying on traditional forms of customer engagement that are tied mostly to the product shelf, customers are looking for more diverse ways to get involved. They're looking for brands to engage them and be partners in their progress in life. So while those consumers have high expectations for companies to make positive change, they also understand that they themselves have a role to play in making that change as well. In fact, 51% of millennials want to get personally involved with brands in making the world a better place. So now that we've described the impact that purpose can have, we want to help you understand how you can make it an active part of your efforts, because simply having a purpose isn't enough.
So how can purpose translate to the customer experience? I'm sure you've all heard of advocacy work being done by Ben & Jerry's, and in many ways, Patagonia is creating positive change, all driven by purpose. For some of you in the B2B space, take a look at the Redwoods Insurance Group and North Carolina, as they're doing really interesting things, also driven by purpose. I'm going to share with you 3 examples of 3 B Corps that are using different approaches to bring purpose to their customer experience. And the reason we are using B Corps as examples is because we know they're not greenwashing. They've gone through a rigorous certification process, and they've proven that they have social responsibility embedded in the company. Let's start with Greystone Bakery out of New York. Greystone, for over 30 years, has maintained an open hiring model, embracing everyone's potential by offering employment opportunity regardless of background or work history. Their purpose is stated as, we don't hire people to bake brownies. We bake brownies to hire people. They are outspoken about their purpose and publicize it on their website, social media, packaging, to keep it top of mind for existing and potential customers. It truly sets them apart from competition. Next company is Uruguay Valley Farms. They are a farmland finance company that provides leasing and mortgage funding with focus on the next generation of organic farmers. Currently, there are 32 farms in 8 states and 23 countries. Interestingly enough, 70% of their tenant farmers are millennials. For this company, it's all about people. Since their inception in 2007, Uruguay Valley has been supporting family farmers through sustainable multi-year leases with unlimited renewal options. Under this lease agreement, the farmer could stay on the land indefinitely for generations. Ultimately, the business is only as successful as its farming tenants. And for this reason, Uruguay Valley team views this arrangement as a partnership. They actually build the entire business model to benefit the community of farmers and make sure that they do well. And that's their purpose. Pretty unusual in a finance mortgage industry. And Thrive Market is another great example. They are on a mission to make healthy living easy and affordable for everyone. Thrive donates memberships to low-income families and encourages advocacy to advance accessibility of good-for-you food. By encouraging its customers to join in its advocacy efforts, Thrive integrates its purpose in the experience and reminds them that they're doing more than buy groceries when they buy from Thrive. Notice the words they use: joining the movement, taking action, and so much. Making it clear that the customer has a role to play and making it easy for them to take action. They're also very transparent about their NGO partners, and you could see them on their website, as it builds credibility with their customers. So this brand is clearly an activist brand and is very vocal about it.
So those are some great examples of companies with a strong social purpose. So now let's take a look at how you can translate that purpose to the customer experience. Because it's really only when your purpose is evident and understood by customers and clients that it can truly be a differentiator. It's not enough to tell your customers about your company's social purpose. You have to show them and let them experience it for themselves. Only then will they care enough to pay attention and connect your purpose with your brand. So we're going to walk through some tips on how you can show customers your purpose and let them experience it.
And to help us illustrate what we're talking about, as it's always easier to understand the concept by seeing an example, we're going to show you examples from Plum Organics. And we are not trying to be a commercial for Plum, but we're using Plum because they're an easily identifiable and relatable brand. Plus, they're so darn good at what they do. They are really excellent at bringing purpose to their customer experience. And while Plum is a B2C company, you should easily be able to imagine how these tips would translate in a B2B environment.
Especially the first tip, because you can't activate purpose unless you really have a clearly defined and focused purpose. So if you haven't done this, or if you aren't sure if your purpose is clear or focused enough, or whether or not social purpose is right for your business, start exploring that now if you're interested. And we'll send everyone on the webinar a link to our guide for discovering and defining your company's purpose, which is something that can be helpful whether you're a solopreneur or you have a large company. It helps facilitate some of the conversation around focusing your purpose or discovering your purpose and grounding your company in a social purpose that's authentic.
So what is Plum's purpose? They are on a mission to nourish little ones with the very best food from the very first bite. It's clearly stated, easily understood by all stakeholders.
So our second tip is to create a culture of purpose, because your purpose needs to be at the core of everything your company does. Remember that diagram we showed earlier with the purpose at the center and everything kind of flowing out from that. It's important to start inside, though, because when those within your organization don't understand the organization's purpose, there's no hope really of translating it to the customer or client experience. And it's really sad. A Gallup poll actually showed that fewer than half of managers and just over 1/3 of non-management employees feel confident in their knowledge of what their company stands for. I think that's something that would probably surprise a lot of leaders in organizations. So you want to be cultivating purpose champions within your organization. Everyone in your company should be a brand purpose advocate. So to do that, celebrate everyone's role and purpose. Make sure that they understand how their specific role affects the customer experience. And review your internal communications to be sure that purpose is clear and present in all of them. Obviously, you also want to invest in some training and keep it up to make sure that your employees in all roles, in all locations, in all time zones, using all channels, can articulate and embrace your purpose. And check in on them from time to time to make sure that that's still being infused throughout their role and throughout the company. You also want to talk to each other on a regular basis about purpose and how it's being received by customers, how it's being executed, how you might do more as a company, it's really interesting to see where ideas can come from, especially when you start engaging employees in purpose. So you'll see some interesting ideas bubble up, and you'll see people get really enthusiastic about purpose. So you want to recognize those purpose superstars and keep purpose present in your meetings, in your communications, and even with something as simple as asking a question with every decision. And the question we like to ask is, how is what we're doing here contributing to or furthering our purpose? It's amazing how that question will focus and help you keep things from going too far off track.
Plum works hard to integrate their purpose internally. It seems like they have a pretty clear focus, but it takes work to make sure there's a culture of purpose throughout the company. They recognize an employee each month who's gone above and beyond in their commitment to Plum's mission. And every Monday morning, Plum team reads notes of gratitude from parents at their all-hands meeting. They call these notes love bombs. It's a great reminder for the team of why they do what they do. What an awesome way to start a work week.
And I'm sure reading those love bombs helps Plum's people think about their customers very differently. And that's something that any company can do, whether you're B2B, B2C, or both. Going a step further to view your customers as partners in purpose will really help you to engage them in a way that empowers and excites them. Just think about it. Who are you more likely to listen to or support, for example? A friend who's asked for your input and responded to your questions and helped you, or one who always tells you what to do and asks you to do things for them? Unfortunately, most companies are like the latter, that are telling you to purchase and asking you to support their efforts, rather than including their customers in the conversation and being helpful to them. So when you think about your customers, don't just think about how they can help you advance profit and purpose, but think about how you can support each other in advancing a shared purpose.
Well, Plum does a great job of this. For Plum to actually get the kids the best food from the start, parents have to give it to them. So they have tons of resources for parents, from recipes to ideas for how to feed picky eaters and much more. Parents are their partners because they carry the purpose through. And in their communications, Team Parent is the hero and Plum is simply a sidekick.
So the next tip that we have for you is to really look at how the purpose of your company is infused through the customer journey. Because if you're really treating your customers as partners, you'll have something to say to them even when they're not on the verge of buying your product or service. So think about your purpose broadly and identify the different times it intersects with your customer's reality. Make those intersections tangible. If you don't have a customer and client journey map, make one. This will really help you identify places where sometimes you wouldn't think to connect with your customers over purpose. And this forms a more natural emotional connection that translates to action and preference for your products when the time to buy does come. So consider what's appropriate given where customers are at different points along their customer journey and how they've already engaged with you. Then invite a relationship and collaboration, not just transactions and asks. So don't just ask them to purchase, ask them to stand with you. Use your communication channels to inform and encourage that engagement, which will create affinity and ultimately build community if you do it well. And remember, don't leave any communications behind. So again, go back to that customer journey map and look at how you're communicating with them. Look at opportunities for communications, from emails to packaging, call center call scripts to retail experiences, websites and social interactions, and everything in between.
Parenting Unfiltered is a site created for parents that speaks frankly of all the milestones they encounter. And it's not just the food-based ones. Plum is there to support parents trying to do their best for their kids in all different ways. This makes them a loyal friend and a partner, not someone who pops up only when parents are about to make a purchase. By using honesty and humor, they've created an intimate relationship with their customers. It's a community where parents can discuss their challenges and worries. And I can tell you, as a mom of 3 girls, I admit to watching a few of these videos and feeling understood.
So one place where a lot of companies fall down, unfortunately, is actually delivering on their promises, even if they have a strong purpose. If you let your purpose really be your guide and ask that question we mentioned earlier about how is what we're doing here advancing our purpose, what your customers experience should always be in harmony with your purpose. So a couple more questions to ask. Do your customers' experiences jive with your company's purpose? And do those experiences deliver on what your purpose promises? And forming authentic relationships in pursuit of purpose means never abandoning that purpose or your partners. So let your purpose act as a North Star in times of difficulty as well. And this can be really helpful when you get into sticky situations. It can guide your decisions and help you identify the course of action that will preserve brand alignment.
So this is a really interesting story. A lawsuit was brought against Plum claiming that the images on their packaging and product names didn't accurately represent the most predominant ingredients. The lawsuit was thrown out on the grounds that common sense would help people understand that the ingredients pictured and described were not necessarily the most predominant. I mean, we all know that Raisin Bran has more bran than raisins. Strawberry ice cream has more ice cream than strawberries. You get the point. Even though this lawsuit against Plum was dismissed, the company decided to overhaul their packaging and product names so that predominant ingredients were represented clearly to customers. And this shows that they're truly listening to their customers and using this situation to improve their product packaging.
And next, you want to make it personal. You want to encourage your employees and customers to live your purpose in a way that makes sense to them and support their efforts to do so. So yeah, your brand needs to speak, but so do your people.
Everyone in your company, from the leadership down, should be involving themselves in carrying your company's purpose in ways that are visible to your customers.
And this is really important. You want to educate and help your customers to further your shared purpose. This ensures that you're more than just a purveyor of goods or services. You're really going to start to be seen as a knowledgeable collaborator. Remember, we talked about purpose being helpful in getting people to kind of fulfill their self-actualized vision of themselves. And this is a place where you can really help with that. So how do you do that? You want to provide resources and information that are designed to empower and motivate action. And purposeful, engaging, enriching content will enable loyal customers to learn and share and act.
So Plum publishes a variety of content with scientific research and actionable tips to help parents make feeding nutritious foods to their kids a reality. Everything from exploring the ingredients in the formula to how snacks should fit in a toddler's diet. Their website is a treasure trove of resources for new parents.
Another thing that they do really well is making it easy for customers to share in their purpose. For you to do this, you want to provide different opportunities for every step along that customer journey that we talked about before. And you also want to make sure that you're going where your customers already are to engage most effectively. This is especially important for smaller companies. We often have companies come to us and say, I want to create our own network online, or I want to do something really special to the company and attract people to come to it. If you don't have the resources of a Plum, for example, it's going to be really hard for you to do that. So it's important to understand where your customers are already hanging out, whether that be in person, online, where they're likely to engage with you through email, perhaps, through advertising. so that you can reach them where they already are and they're open to engaging you. So start with small and tangible ways that are both, both tangible and measurable, so the customers can contribute to your purpose. And focus on specific actions where your core business competencies can help to drive greater impact. You want to really play on your strengths here.
Linking easy actions with good outcomes make it simple for your customers to get involved. You know, everyone is busy. We all never have enough time in our day. So Plum donates a super smoothie with every purchase made in a store to link the customer's act of purchasing with the positive outcomes of donation.
And for our final tip, when brands stop patting themselves on the back and start applauding their customers' efforts in making change, those customers and clients are more likely to embrace them in allies and living meaningfully. Many people, especially those millennials, believe that one person can make a difference. So by making your customers and clients the heroes in your story, you're going to empower them to own and to continue to contribute to the impact that you're creating together. So celebrating their contributions to shaping and fulfilling your shared purpose is really important, because customers will then embrace you as a partner if you embrace their role and their contribution.
Save the applause for the customer, right? And this is one of my favorite things that they do. Plum has badges on their Parenting Unfiltered site that celebrate the milestones of parenthood, applauding the parents' persistence and bravery in the quest to do the best for their kids. Aside from feeling understood as a customer, this content is highly shareable on social and goes a long way to building trust and community.
So hopefully with those 9 tips and some of the background we shared earlier, you have some ideas about how you can use purpose to unlock loyalty for your company. And don't worry if you're not sure about your purpose yet. We have some resources that can help you explore whether purpose will work for your business, and how to focus your purpose if it will, and then how to infuse it through the customer experience. We've included here a URL that has a landing page especially for this webinar where you can find those resources. The recording of this webinar will also be available there. And don't worry, we'll send you an email when the recording is ready, so you don't have to hurry up to write down that URL right now. But if you want to dive right in, make sure that you get that. And there are a few other great resources there as well. We hope that you'll sign up for our email updates for future resources, and you can go to roundpegcom.com to do that. If you're curious about some of the data that we've used during the presentation, you can find a list of sources on this slide in the session recording. So that's available to you. There's some really interesting data and studies being done out there. And so we wanted to leave ample time for questions and discussion. So if you haven't already, go ahead and use the Q&A function to chat in those questions. And Jason is going to help us get those questions in front of us. So as we move into that, we also want to encourage you to follow us on social. And if you have any questions after the webinar or want to talk to us about how maybe we might work together to unlock customer loyalty through purpose, go ahead and email either Polina or myself. Our emails are right here. And we do offer free consultations on activating purpose to explore ideas around that.